From Kenan Stadium in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, this is TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And Andrew here on the Kenan Stadium turf once again, following Carolina's 45-42 victory over Miami. Shootout, I guess, would be the way to put it out, especially in that how things kind of went down in the second half.
Tweeted in the third quarter that the game was becoming a video game.
And
it was what it was, but video games don't have a crap load of penalties. Video games don't have a crap load of missed tackles and curious offensive play calling. Well, they do.
If I'm on the stakes, they do 100%.
Yeah, it was a video game.
Exactly. We'll dive into it right now.
Barn burner.
Barn burner. That's a good play. That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to describe it. It was a heck of a finish, which we'll hit on here in a little bit. But I think the first place we need to start is, I think we need to talk about Sam Howell. Two passing touchdowns, 2 running touchdowns as well. I think he ran for close to 100 yards. That was a good night from him, and especially with his legs, made some really big plays. I was on the field taking photos when he scored right over there, and I mean, he was getting popped out there some too. There was a handful of big hits, counting that one down there, which might have been the biggest one of the day. And there was a little, not fight afterwards, but a little pushing and shoving afterwards because of it. But Sam Howell took some hits tonight. He was tough. Played, like I said, didn't do as much as you may expect for him to do through the air as we've seen in the past from him. But I mean, using his legs has been something we've seen, a new kind of phase for Sam Howell this year, something the offense has kind of transitioned into, for lack of a better word. And I thought it was really on display tonight with some big plays by him in particular.
Shout out to Lauren Brownlow.
Tweet of the night.
Tweet of the night. Cam Howell. That's all she tweeted. Cam Howell. He looked like Cam Newton.
Yeah.
That touchdown run right over here, he bounced off a guy. So he pinballed his way into the end zone, but he kind of glided. He was able to kind of glide in there the last 5 or 6 yards, and he was looking down a Miami defender, and he ended up barking at him afterward, which I think is great.
Yeah.
I mean, he was taking some pops down. He had a couple roughing the passer penalties. I think the objective, if you're playing North Carolina, is if you can take him out, you're going to win the game.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Because he's
unbelievable.
You see that.
You see how the other teams hit him. I'm not accusing teams of doing it, but it's pretty evident when you're on the field.
I played football. Take out the quarterback. Take out their best players. It's a physical game.
Exactly.
That's part of the game. And Sam's a physical runner. That's who he is. And we talk about, what's this team's identity? I think this identity is that they're going to ride on Sam. If they can go with his arm, they're going to go with his arm. But they don't get open. And in the second half tonight, Josh Downs had 1 catch for 4 yards and had a drop on third down.
Big drop.
I'm not criticizing Josh. There's so much pressure on him to produce. They weren't moving through the air. I think Antoine Green did have a 41-yard reception. Yeah. So somebody else caught a ball, but no one was getting open. The tight ends weren't getting open. And the pocket started collapsing. They started sacking Sam. Yeah. So Phil Longo's like, just run.
And you saw it because Justin Olsen started ahead of Simmons tonight, played a lot. Emory Simmons did not play a lot tonight, so you see that they're trying new things. Yeah, with the
Olsen was open once right over here, and Sam threw way behind him.
Yeah, he was open.
And so Sam is so tough. And we already knew that.
Oh, yeah.
But tonight's a new level of respect for his toughness. He was the kind of tough that middle linebackers can say, yeah, dude, you're like one of us.
Yeah.
You're a quarterback with middle linebacker toughness. And I'm talking old school middle linebacker toughness.
He took some licks tonight, man.
Yeah, and that won them the game.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Sam's runs in the second half, getting into the end zone and bouncing off guys, running over guys, and channeling his inner Javonte Williams against this team is what won them the game. A lot of other things you could say, the interceptions by Cedric Gray and maybe the Gio Bigger sack, that kind of thing. There were other plays that were big, but Sam won them the game with those plays, because if he doesn't get in the end zone with those runs, they don't get in the end zone. No. They end up having to settle for field goals. The one was a 30-yarder. There's no guarantee they're going to convert that. Atkins did hit a 48-yarder, but he missed a 52-yarder. He hasn't been great in that range this year. So he finished with 98 yards rushing, but he had 4 sacks for 31 yards. So 13 rushes for actually 129 yards if you exclude the sacks. That's pretty good numbers. Yeah. I think it's, 9.9 yards rush. That's what Sam did. And they needed every one of those yards to win this game. Yeah. So he He almost had his 400-yard game.
That's wild.
I mean, there's 7 games in the season, and they're relying on Sam to run. Clearly, things have not unfolded the way anybody expected, and they got to win.
Yeah.
And they got to win because of Sam's legs. I mean, that's kind of where they are. They got to win. Sam did it for them. You pack it in, and you move on to the next one.
We've had a lot of conversations throughout Sam's career here about Sam winning them games, so this isn't really nothing new. But
you know, this is a different way.
Yeah,
I mean, it's cool to see guys bounce off dudes. I love football like that.
Yeah.
But the script in August was throwing over the top. And
That's not
the way it is. So this team has been reduced to that.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure there are signs that they're going to be anything more than that moving forward. So Sam's going to take a lot of hits. He's going to have to do this moving forward. He's the guy that's going to have to take 25 shots a game. He's the dude that's going to have to knock in every runner in scoring position, every opportunity he has, because that's his team's chance to win. And I think that's what we saw tonight. That's what we're going to see moving forward.
Definitely. Let's flip the script to the defensive side of the ball, because I know we need to talk about that again. I guess a tale of two halves, I guess we could kind of say, especially those third and fourth quarters, how those went down defensively. Miami had over 300 yards in the second half. What did they have in the first half? Close to around 80 something, yeah. So 31-17 at the break, and then it ends 45-42. So defense definitely struggled again. I actually liked what I saw from them in the first half for the most part. There was a few plays and a few things I know they would have liked to have back, but I was like, okay, this is kind of what I expected. Jekyll and Hyde defense don't play very well against Florida State, come back and play a little bit better against Miami, but totally different script in the second half with how that went down. So it's a concern. I know I know Cedric Gray made a couple big plays. Cam Kelly had some turnovers. They did force some turnovers today, including pretty much the game winner with Cedric Gray, but it seems like we're just kind of having the same kind of conversations about this defense in a lot of ways. And when you consider Miami's with their backup quarterback and backup center tonight, I don't think anybody really expected. I know I didn't. I definitely didn't expect Miami to come in here and score 42 points on the Tar Heels and be as close as it was. So, yeah, defense is, I think, still an issue for the most part.
The most points Miami had scored against an FBS team this season was 28 points. So they had 25 in the second half. They had 80 yards at halftime. They had 17 points. So there were some defensive issues in the first half, and they were called penalties.
Yep.
There were 40 yards in penalties on Miami's field goal drive. They had a pick six for a touchdown, and then they had a long drive that was totally penalties, and they got a field goal out of it. And then there was a big penalty on the third scoring drive, which was a touchdown fairly late in the first half. So Carolina was dominating the game at the line of scrimmage with the exception of a couple of those mistakes. And as a result, it was 31-17, and the conversation in the press box was, this thing should be 31-0.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they were that much better than Miami in the first half at the point of attack. That flipped in the second half, 341 yards, 25 points. I know this is redundant, but I am going to take liberty at being redundant here. Virginia had 28 points and 366 yards in the first half. Georgia Tech, 313 yards, 32 points in the second half in Atlanta. Last week, Jordan Travis and Florida State had 35 points and 352 yards in the middle two quarters. Today, it's 341 yards, 25 points in the second half, and the game ended. They had the ball right there, 16-yard line. Yep. They don't get a pick there. I mean, I thought they were going to go in and score.
Oh, yeah.
When it goes off the rails for this defense, it stays off the rails for a long time. And they have a very difficult time pulling themselves out of it. They made the play tonight. I believe it was Gimmel with the tip and Gray with the interception, and they had a lot of dudes there. So they made the play. But, man, when this defense goes bad,
it's bad.
It is really bad for a long period of time. And that's a concern that I know that they have. They're trying to address these things, but you're 32 games in to the Jay Bateman defense, and these things are happening a lot with a lot of talent on the field, albeit young in some spots. Yeah. And Jeremiah Gimmel said that the communication was better. But if you're a Carolina fan, this has to be a considerable concern because this has happened. Okay, Virginia's got a really good offense at times. Brennan Armstrong's phenomenal. Georgia Tech's offense ain't any good. Florida State's offense ain't any good. And this club here was playing with Tyler Van Dyke at quarterback, not the Eric King. So they've got much tougher foes ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Much better quarterbacks ahead that they're going to face. And if it goes off the rail for two quarters against some of those teams they still have to play, that it's going to be an ugly night. So they got to figure out a way. You can't fix it entirely, but If it goes bad for a quarter, trim it. Make it one quarter.
Yeah.
You can win a game, especially when Sam's doing what Sam did, if you have one really bad quarter defensively. If you have two really bad quarters defensively, it's very difficult to. They've actually survived in two of these.
You're not lying.
Because of Sam Howell. He had 100-something yards against UVA, 300-something passing, and today he just did everything he can. He willed this team in many respects to the win. So this is a big issue, and it has to be fixed. And they now have an open date to figure out something to do to tweak this to make it 10 or 15% better. It probably needs to be even more than that better, considering they've got Notre Dame, Pitt, Wake, and NC State coming up. And all four of those teams are considerably better than anybody they've played so far.
Definitely. Let's talk about the last thing I want to hit on. I think this was a big win for this team and for this year's team for a lot of reasons. When you look at what's coming up, you got the bye week, like you mentioned. You go to South Bend. Should give this team a little bit more confidence going into it. I know it really wasn't the performance they probably ultimately wanted, particularly on defense, like we talked about in the second half. But they came out with a win, and that's what really matters. So you go into the bye week a little bit of momentum. It's a win against a Miami team that is struggling. I think I saw somebody tweet it's like Miami's worst start in through 6 games in a long time. I don't remember. I forgot how long it was, but a long time. So
they're not good.
No, they're not. Definitely not.
And Manny Diaz is on a hot seat.
100%. I was going to.
And talking to the Miami media, I know this isn't a Miami thing, but they all think he's going to get fired.
I think he will too.
Tonight may have been like another nail in the coffin.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. So I think this was a big win for him. You could see. I think you asked Mac after the game about it kind of being maybe a weight lifted off their shoulders a little bit.
Exhale.
Yeah, just kind of an exhale of, okay,
relief.
We won that game. The pressure, I think, was mounting after some subpar performances over the last few weeks. But now you get a win, like I said, going into that bye week, going to Notre Dame. That should help with the confidence. So, AJ, to you, how big of a win was it? Not for the program, but for this year's team in particular.
Well, there are a couple ways to look at it. Number one, if they lost this game, getting to a bowl game would have not been impossible,
Very
but
hard.
the odds would have been very, very long. Very, very long odds to get to a bowl game. Now they can still manage it because all they got to do is beat Wofford, you get 5th win there, and pick one of these other games off, you can get to a bowl. And I know that people are thinking, that wasn't a goal to begin the season. They were number 10. Well, they scrapped those goals are gone.
Yeah, they're gone.
So if you want to get something, out of the season, you have to reset, and that's what they did this week. So they had the final 6 games of the season. They're 1-0 in that stretch, and they have to get to 3 wins in order to get to a bowl. So that's one thing. More than that, though, the psyche of the team.
Definitely.
I asked Jeremiah this. Talked to Mac brought it up even in his opening statement that he didn't say we needed to win a game in which we played terribly in so many ways, but when you do win a game when you don't play well, that's how a team grows.
Yeah.
That's when confidence really grows. It makes it so much easier to pick on a kid for 15 mistakes in a game when you're coming off a W.
Yeah.
When they're eating their steak and lobster.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It makes it so much easier to sell that to kids. They're not as down on one another. Cedric Gray, it's funny, Jeremiah said, no, we just made the plays. That one play, if it's not made and Miami scores, it's the same game except that play, and it would have been a totally different tune. So I think it gives them a chance to go 2 weeks now with a victory in their back pocket before they go to Notre Dame. They have a winning record, and they made plays.
Yeah.
They didn't play well in Blacksburg. The offense was terrible in Blacksburg, and nobody stepped up to make a play to flip it. When they went to Georgia Tech, everything went wrong that night. And there was nobody that stepped up to make a play that flipped it. Against Florida State, they had a big lead. It looked like they were going to blow them out, and then things started to cave, and they had no way to pull themselves out. It would look like that tonight. Yeah. Tonight was a lot like Florida State in some ways, but they made a play to pull themselves out. And it's just one play out of so many in the game, but it's amazing how it can affect a team's disposition. And psyche, you played sports. If you've played sports before, you know how important team psyche is. You know how important that relief of, man, we should have lost this game. We could have lost, but we won. Yeah. That can infuse a team with the right kind of positivity. Not ignorance. Not say, boy, we made it now. We've arrived. We just had 400 penalties, and we couldn't stop anybody, and the offensive line fell apart again in this game late after playing well in the first half. It's not that at all. It just makes it easier to deal with some of those things. Yeah. And a lot of people at home that watch the team from afar and are highly critical if you haven't played, you don't understand how important this is.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why Mac was just celebrating the win. You take this win, shove it in your back pocket, ignore the film until tomorrow, then you have to comb over it and bullet point all the things that went wrong, because they all must be corrected. But they're going to correct it with smiles on their faces for a change, and that's good for this team. Got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Win a game you could have lost, win a game maybe you should have lost against a bad team, and move forward. That's how you build steam.
Yeah, one game at a time. A win's a win at the end of the day. So, it goes on. When you look at the schedule and results, you'll see a W beside it. So, I think that's all really counts.
Some people think it's trite, but I think it's 100%.
No, it is. It is.
When you look at the standings, nothing else matters.
No.
W and L.
Yeah.
This was a W.
Yeah, winning fixes a lot. So Carolina getting the win 45-42 over Miami tonight. Thought it was a fun one. I was on the sidelines. My first time this year I'd been on the sidelines for a game, which I'd been in the past. It was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed being out here, and it's always good to kind of get around the guys, get a little different of an angle, and see some different things. But biggest takeaway for me, like I said earlier, Sam Howell got popped a lot
quick
tonight.
note, he was here because you've been up at the press box mostly, but thoughts and prayers to Kevin Roy and his family, because his brother died. So everybody who's a THI fan and you follow Kevin's work, send him some prayers. They're going through a tough time right now. So Kevin, we're with you, my man.
Yeah,
and you were here. Jacob was here in the field, but there was a part of Kevin out here too.
He was here in spirit.
I don't know what part. I don't want to know what part, but it was here anyway.
Yeah,
in spirit anyhow.
100% thoughts and prayers with Kevin and his family. Like I said, if you guys, I know all our followers at TargetIllustrated.com, you know him, so get involved, get in contact with them on our message boards or something, and let them know you're thinking about them. But good shout out right there, good call right there. 45-42 win for the Tar Heels tonight over the Hurricanes. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell as well. And real quickly, head on over to TargetIllustrated.com for all your post-game coverage from tonight's victory. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.